Good morning, everybody. As you're coming in, put your locations in the comments section. Locations in the comments, and we will get started in a moment. Locations in the comments. Hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. Today, we are talking about the Trump administration going against birthright citizenship. There is a challenge of birthright citizenship coming up. We are going to discuss as y'all coming in. Again, put your locations in the comments and we'll get started in a minute. Locations in the comments. Just let me know where you're checking in from. I'll shout out a few people who have shouted themselves out, and then we'll get started as usual. Just put your locations in the comments. We are live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. Live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Let me check for X. We're live on X. Good morning, X. Live on LinkedIn. Good morning, LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn and X and Rumble on YouTube is at Dre All Day. We are live on Facebook. Facebook didn't start yet, so we got to do Facebook again. Let's see. Facebook. Still getting an issue with Facebook. So let's see if we can get Facebook restarted. While I'm getting Facebook back in order, we are live on Instagram at Dre Baldwin, live on TikTok at Work on Your Game. Put your locations in the comments. Locations in the comments, everybody, and we'll get started in a moment. Let me get Facebook back up and running, or see if Facebook is going to be up and running today. Sometimes it gives me an issue that doesn't get fixed. So 3, 2, 1, starting. Let's see. There it is. Facebook is working now. Then let's get this. We are live on Facebook at Work on Your Game University Facebook. So good on Rumble, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Good morning. KingWorks21 over there on Instagram for checking in. Over on TikTok, let's shout a few people out and then we'll get started. Thank you everybody for the likes so far. We're at 1,000 likes though. We need more than that. We're going to need more than 1,000 likes, folks, before I get into this. So I'm going to shout a few people down in the comments who shouted themselves out early. Kim H, congrats on the gifter badge early. 140.6 Walnut Creek, California. Courtney from Nashville, good morning. Sylvia and Courtney, thank you for the gifts. Erica B, good morning from Baltimore. Laura Iggy Lover, good morning from Oklahoma. Annie AFF from Kentucky. Bravo Girl, thanks for the gift. Sherry, good morning from Mesa, Arizona. Kim H from Oklahoma City. Jean, good morning from New York. Ray from Absecon, New Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. Cozy Gang Records from LA. Ashley Nicole from Northeast Florida. Northeast Florida? What is that? We talking Jacksonville, Gainesville? I haven't heard anybody call that part Northeast Florida, but okay. Joe Araya from Atlanta, Georgia. Scooter 5150 from Colorado. Leah, good morning. Checking in from Tifton, Georgia. Thank you for the gifts early. Thank you for the Go Popular. Leah Maddie for the number 3 gifter badge. Congrats. Leah, thanks for the hearts. G-Man Real Deal said, your rhetoric helped me create the atmosphere for black votes to bleed over. Your rhetoric helped create the atmosphere for black votes to bleed over to Donald Trump. Do you really believe that? Number one. Number two, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't think you actually believe that. But if you do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And what I'm saying here is not rhetoric. It's really just breaking down what's happening. Linda Gale, good morning from St. Louis. Have a great day, you too. Ron Johnson, Lima, Ohio. Tina, good morning from 757 VA. Thanks for the gift. Marky Man checking in from Sacramento. Thanks for the heart. Tina and the repost. Mia, thank you for the 100 lightning bolts early. Rashim, Tony from Findlay, Ohio. Rory B. Patriot, good morning, everyone. Leather and Pearls, good morning. Tina, the lightning bolt, thank you. Leather and Pearls, thanks for the heart. Leather and Pearls, oh, good morning. Let's see. Erica B, thank you for telling people to tap the screen. Jake Lancaster checking in from Big Iowa Corn Country. Shout out to Corn Country. A lot of farms out there. Kuya bin Yasharal from Manson, North Carolina. Nana Cat from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Rory B checking in from Missouri. Murphy the Mutt said Bristol says hi. Cool V22 from Compton, California. Good morning, Murphy the Mutt. Thanks for the share. Carol and Collins, Newburgh, New York. And let's get to it. So the topic here today is Donald Trump is going to be there's going to be a Supreme Court case on Donald Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. So let me give a little bit of background on what exactly happened here. So what happened is the Supreme Court made a decision to hear arguments in this case, which is Trump versus Barbara, that is consolidated with another case that was Trump versus Washington. It marks a pivotal moment in immigration law, challenging over a century of precedent on the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause. So this got announced just a couple days ago, about 4 days ago, last Friday. President Trump has had an aggressive second-term push to redefine who qualifies for automatic U.S. citizenship at birth. Some of you may know about this. Donald Trump's been challenging this. That just because you were born, the law has generally been if you were born on American soil, then you have birthright citizenship. Just because you were born in America, you are an American citizen. So even if both of your parents came to America without proper documentation, if they conceive, then you are born in Oklahoma, then you, even though both of your parents are here without proper documentation, you would be an American citizen just because you were born in America. Donald Trump has been challenging this and saying that it shouldn't be this way. So what we're going to do is talk about here today where this comes from. First, let me give you a background on birthright citizenship so we're all on the same page. So this is also known as jus soli, which is the right of the soil. This is enshrined in the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868. And here's the quote. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Close quote. This was primarily intended to grant citizenship to formerly enslaved people and their descendants after the Civil War, which overturned the Dred Scott decision from 1857 that denied Black Americans citizenship. So the reason that this 14th Amendment was added 11 years after the Dred Scott case was to make sure that Black Americans or Black people at that time would not be denied American citizenship because of the birthright citizenship. So if you were born here in America, which many descendants of slaves and people who were born into slavery were, they automatically became Americans simply because they were born in America. And that's the reason why the 14th Amendment was added. Now, the Supreme Court affirmed its broad application in 1898 in a case called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. This ruled that a child born in the U.S. to immigrant parents, i.e. non-citizens, they were still a citizen. Exceptions exist for children of foreign diplomats or invading forces because they are not subject to jurisdiction of USA law. But if you're not a foreign diplomat and you're not an invading force, you become a citizen just by being born here. Now, today, the U.S. is one of about 35 countries. Canada's another, Brazil's another. That grant near universal birthright citizenship. In other words, you're born there, you're a citizen. Most nations use something by like right of blood based on parental citizenship, and as opposed to near universal birthright citizenship. The United States is universal. Now, Trump has always criticized this. He said it's a magnet for illegal immigration. That's his framing. And birth tourism, basically saying you could just go around and just have people in all different countries just because you haven't born there. He argues that it incentivizes unauthorized entry. And there's a way of looking at it that way. Now, in his first term, he floated ending it via executive action, but he backed off due to a bunch of legal hurdles. This time, he's trying again. So this is his second time trying to do this. All that said, actually, let me make sure I'm giving you all the background I want to give before I introduce myself. So this is basically 150 years of settled precedent going against his administration, testing how far. Some say this is a stretch on executive power. They say that this guy's taking his executive power, Donald Trump, that is. He's finding out how far he can push it. And of course, being a lot of people don't like Donald Trump, a lot of people have a big problem with this. Now, the legal question is simple. What is subject to the jurisdiction? What that actually means? That's the argument that's going to happen in court. Trump's lawyers and the lawyers on the other side of this, which are going to be a lot of people, they're going to argue that subject to this jurisdiction, Trump's going to say that just because you were born here does not mean you're subject to the jurisdiction, or people are violating it anyway. And the other side is going to argue, well, we've always had it. This is the precedent. How are you going to go against the precedent? Not president, but precedent, legal precedent. Now, the political, demographic, and generational implications of this are huge, because this is going to be a huge fight if Trump and his lawyers fight for it, because they're going to have to fight hard to get this overturned. I'll tell you that up front, simply because it has 100+ years of precedent. Now, this hints at whether the court is willing to even let the president try to rewrite a constitutional amendment, which is going to be very difficult. As much as you heard people saying that Donald Trump is destroying the Constitution, he's going to destroy the Constitution, he's going to destroy democracy, he's trying to rewrite the Constitution, he's violating the Constitution. All the people you've heard saying that, when this goes to court next year, now they're going to have something real behind that statement. They were just saying it before, and it sounded like a bunch of conjecture, nonsense, TDS symptoms. But if this goes to court in January, which it's going to, because the Supreme Court said they are going to hear this argument, this is literally Donald Trump trying to rewrite the Constitution. So any of you who thinks that's some nonsense when they say Trump's trying to rewrite the Constitution, or some even say destroy the Constitution, he is literally trying to fight against the Constitution right now. Might be a good thing, might be a bad thing, might be a neutral thing. That's what we're going to discuss here today. Now, they want to see if he can effectively rewrite this through a reinterpretation rather than a formal amendment. So he's not trying to make a new amendment to the Constitution. He's just trying to change the interpretation of what certain language in the Constitution means. And again, those of you who are opponents of Donald Trump, y'all are going to have a field day with this one, because he is basically providing the material for you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of a few books, done a few TED Talks. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here essentially is help you develop the strategies, the mindsets, and the approach and the systems and the execution that helps you get to the top 2% of what you do. Where I got that from is from my background as a pro athlete. You got to be in the top 2% to make it, let alone to keep a job. Same thing, that we take those same tools mentally, strategically, systematically, and execution wise, and we teach you how to apply those in your business, in your professional world, and in your everyday life. Right now, our focus is on helping you master communication in all areas: your written communication, your spoken communication, your nonverbal communication, and your ability to observe and absorb other people's communication. Half of communication is not what you put out, but what you take in. A lot of people don't understand it or don't think about it. When you master that level of communication, that's when you get a strong signal that we call the power presence. That signal draws the right type of attention for people. Then they get into the other aspects of what it is that you have, and that's how you move people into your world, by mastering that signal that, again, we call power presence. You learn more about that at the link in my profile. You see that book right over my ear right here, or over there if you're on Instagram, or all the way over there if you're on these screens over here: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Rumble, and X. Go to the link in my profile. You can learn more about getting into the mastermind. Have me as your direct coach. So getting into this topic here today was, again, Trump challenging birthright citizenship. Now, this case is challenging whether an executive order can redefine the 14th Amendment with or without Congress, or without the states. And it raises fears that presidential reinterpretation can become a new tool to alter constitutional meaning. Here's what I'll tell you right up front. That Donald Trump tries to change how birthright citizenship is interpreted just by executive order, that's going to cause a crazy firestorm politically. A bunch of people are going to fight back against this strong. There's going to be a whole bunch of lawsuits against this. It's going to be a big news item, because the Supreme Court basically is going to decide whether or not this is okay or not. Now, the Supreme Court, a lot of people know, leans more conservative, but I don't think the Supreme Court is going to go for this. Personally, I don't think they're going to go for it. They're going to listen to the argument, but I don't think they're going to say Donald Trump can write an executive order or sign an executive order that says we can reinterpret the Constitution, especially one such a hot button issue as this one, just by executive order. Because executive order is basically him unilaterally making a decision and everybody has to follow it. And Congress is going to have a whole lot to say about this. All your favorite Congress people, especially on the political left, they're going to have something to say about this and saying, no way can Donald Trump just reinterpret the Constitution through an executive order. Congress is going to come at him for this. And if he even tries to do this, let alone if he succeeds at doing it, there's another bullet in the chamber for a Democratic-led Congress in 2027 if Democrats win the midterms in 2026. They take over in 2026 to impeach Donald Trump in 2027. So keep all these things in mind that Donald Trump knows he's setting himself up for if he decides to go through with this. So he's just asking for the smoke. Donald Trump doesn't mind the smoke. He's asking for all the smoke by doing what he's doing right here. Opponents argue that this bypasses the amendment process entirely. And I think they have a very strong argument for that. He's bypassing the amendment process. If you're going to alter an amendment or you're going to make a new amendment, you have to go through Congress. That's the reason why Congress exists. We have a system of checks and balances. If the president wants to do something, you got to go through Congress. If Congress wants to do something, you got to go through the president. And if either side is doing things way too recklessly, then either side can go to the judicial branch and the judicial branch can decide the outcome, which is why this case is going to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the head of the judicial branch of the United States government. You got the executive branch, the president, you got the legislative branch, which is Congress, and they all check and balance each other. Donald Trump being able to do this without having to go through those checks and balances is a violation of the system of checks and balances. That's the argument that his opponents will have. That's the reason why this is going to the Supreme Court. Now, if the Supreme Court says it's okay for him to do it, the legislative branch is not going to sit there and allow this to occur. Well, at least not all of them. The people on the political right may, but the people on the political left in Congress are not going to sit there and let this happen. And again, this will be a great news story. It'll be great material for somebody like myself because we will be talking about this again if the Supreme Court says that Donald Trump can simply alter the interpretation of the Constitution unilaterally through an executive order is basically his unilateral decisions as to what he wants to do. Now, the thing about executive orders, the challenge with an executive order is that let's say he does this and now we have a reinterpretation of the Constitution. All that's going to happen is the next Democratic president, whomever that is, and whenever it is, there will be another one at some point. The next Democratic president is just going to sign a different executive order that cancels Donald Trump's executive order. So this is going to take everything right back to where it was before. That's the issue with doing things by executive order is that they're temporary and they only last as long as you or your political side is in power because the order can expire and or the next president can come in and they write new orders. For example, Donald Trump, when he came in 2017 after winning the 2016 election, he signed a bunch of executive orders that strengthened and reinforced border enforcement at our southern border. This is why Donald Trump ran on, hey, we're going to have fewer immigrants coming into the country and they're not sending their best. I remember all that, right? These things about immigration that cause a lot of people to call Donald Trump xenophobic and he doesn't like immigrants and he's racist and all that stuff. Y'all remember all of that. Donald Trump signed executive orders to basically tell the people at the border to enforce the border more strongly than they had been before he came into office. He did that from 2017 till about 2020. When Joe Biden came into office in 2021, within his first month as president, Joe Biden signed a bunch of different executive orders that basically counteracted all of Donald Trump's executive orders. Joe Biden's executive orders told the people at the border essentially enforce the rules and the laws of the border less than what you had been before. So he softened the enforcement of the law. He didn't change the law. He softened the enforcement of the law. He told them don't enforce the laws as strongly, similar to what we talked about yesterday in the state of Minnesota when they weren't enforcing the checks and balances for all those invoices being sent in by that, Feeding Our Future organization, the white woman-led but Somali-focused organization that was stealing a whole bunch of money. All Joe Biden did, his administration, they just said don't enforce the rules as strongly. And because the rules aren't being enforced as strongly and people noticed that, more and more people came across the border without having proper documentation. And the Biden administration made it easy for them to get temporary legal status, so that temporary protected status so they could stay in America. And this was the whole thing that Donald Trump ran on in 2024 successfully. The whole issue, I'm bringing that all up to help you all understand that if you do things by executive order, it's only temporary because the next person come in and just change it. They can just change what you just did. The issue, though, the bigger issue with the executive order is the ramifications of whatever happened while that order was in effect can't be so easily undone. which is how Donald Trump came in and immediately he started enforcing the border again. They canceled that little app that you could get temporary legal status on. And he sent Tom Homan and Kristi Noem to start rounding up people who didn't have documentation and getting them out of the country. The issue is they can't round up everybody. There's a whole millions of people who came into the country during the Biden administration without proper documentation. And Trump and Tom Homan and crew, they don't have the resources to capture all of them at the same time. Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, ICE, they can't get all of them. So a bunch of people who came in under Biden executive order will still be here, and Trump is never going to catch all of those people. So they can't undo everything that happened under the executive order, even though they can undo the order itself. So if Trump is able to do this and cancel the interpretation, the current interpretation of birthright citizenship, what it means is a bunch of people who could get birthright citizenship just by being born in America, regardless of who their parents are right now, between now and 2028 or early 2029, they could technically still be deported, even though they were born on American soil. And they might not have such an easy time getting back into the country after the fact. So this still will have a tangible effect on a whole lot of people if he's able to make this happen, even though it would only be an executive order. Because for this to happen in terms of actually amending the Constitution, first of all, the PR I can't call it a nightmare for Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump has PR nightmares. But this would be a PR shitstorm for the Trump administration because they're going to have to deal with this and answer a ton of questions about it, number one. And number two, the other thing that will happen is Congress is going to fight. The Democrats in Congress are going to fight tooth and nail to not let this go through. There's no way they would vote for this. So this is the reason why he's doing it through executive order, because he knows he can't get Congress to agree to this. Even though the Republicans have the majority in Congress, they don't have enough of a majority that they can do things without Democratic cooperation. They need some Democratic cooperation. They don't have enough. That's why Donald Trump knows better to even try. So here we are. That's the situation. Now, Trump's order excludes children born to undocumented immigrants and temporary visa holders, which critics say will instantly create tens of thousands of stateless newborns with no citizenship anywhere. And this is what they're going to use against Donald Trump. They're going to use the appeal to emotion against Donald Trump. Is now you got a bunch of kids being born who technically are not U.S. citizens, but they weren't born in the country that their parents are from. So technically, they don't have citizenship there, maybe, in this situation. So basically, you're creating a whole bunch of abandoned children, and Donald Trump is destroying the lives of children and leaving them abandoned, and they belong to no one with no citizenship anywhere. This is why Donald Trump is inhumane. He doesn't care about people. He's xenophobic, and he's only doing this to brown people. Y'all see where this is going. This would be great material if it happens. If this happens, it'll be great for me because I'll get to use this as content. Guaranteed we'll be talking about this if he's able to get this through. I'm not sure he gets this through. So those of you who are MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, Republicans, Trump voters, I'm not sure he can get this one through. This one's going to be really tough to get through. We'll see what the Supreme Court has to say about it. Maybe we'll talk about that when they give their response. But for him to get, what's he got to get? A majority ruling from the Supreme Court to say that this is okay. Even the conservative justices on the Supreme Court, I'm not sure he can get this one over. What do y'all think? Y'all think he can get this one through? Give me a yes or a no. Given the context I've given you already, do you think Donald Trump can get this one through and get the Supreme Court to agree that he can write an executive order to end birthright citizenship? My opinion is no, he can't do this. I think he's going to try, obviously. They made it all the way to the Supreme Court, but I'm not sure he gets this one through. He got to get 5 justices on the Supreme Court to say yes to this. Which ones? Who's going to say yes to this? I'm not even sure the conservative justices say yes to this one. Foil Hat said he can do it. Well, he can. The question is, will he? Will he be able to get it done? Because he has to get the Supreme Court to agree with this. This is a tough one. Human rights groups are warning that this violates international treaties on preventing statelessness. In other words, if he does this, that's the words you're going to start hearing, is that Donald Trump's executive order has created a whole bunch of stateless children. Well, technically, they would be stateless because they're not American citizens at that point. But they're not citizens of anywhere else either because where were they born? Depending on who their parents are. So he's created a whole bunch of kids who have no country. They're born in America, the land of the free, home of the brave, the land of opportunity. This is the place that's been a beacon of hope for so many people from all over the world for over 100 years. Now, all of a sudden, this old white guy from New York who is a billionaire, he's going to decide that all these people can no longer be citizens just by the reality of being born in the United States of America. This would be a great news item. This would be great, again, for me, if he's able to push this through. I don't know that this one's going to make it, but we'll see what the arguments are. We'll see what the Supreme Court has to say. Because obviously this has enough substance that it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. If it didn't have enough substance, it wouldn't have made it to the Supreme Court. The fact that it's going before the Supreme Court shows that this might actually happen. So my prediction is it won't happen, just without any prior knowledge of what the justices on the Supreme Court even think about this up to this point. But the fact that it's going to the Supreme Court means it has a shot. It's like a boxing match. You might think one boxer is way better than the other, but the fact they're having a match, all right, one punch could end the fight in favor of the fighter you think who can't win. So the fact that it's going to SCOTUS is something. Now, the administration is leaning on selective historical quotes, which is exactly what you do in court. For those of you who don't understand what the court system is really about, it is absolutely not about innocence versus guilt. If you think that, and please go back to the fourth grade. That's where the last place that was actually true. It's not about innocence versus guilt. It's not about truth versus non-truth or fact versus not fact. It's not about right versus wrong. The justice system in America is generally about the interpretation of laws and who does a better job, meaning attorney versus attorney, who does a better job of interpreting and framing a law in such a way that influences a judge and or a jury. That is what the legal system is about. In a long story short, if you go to court, how good is your lawyer at identifying a certain law or precedent or procedure in detail? And then how good are they at, first of all, not only identifying it, but presenting it to the court, the judge and the jury, and interpreting it in such a way that the judge and the jury agree with them more than they agree with the other attorney, who is either the defense lawyer or the prosecutor or the plaintiff or the defendant. Are they better at framing their point than the other one is at framing their point? Whoever's better at framing their point wins the case. That's how it goes. That's how the legal system actually works. Now, some people say the legal system is about money. Well, it is, because the best lawyers who are best at doing what I just described, they charge the most money. And the lawyers who are not that good, they charge less money. So if you got a lot of money, you can hire a lawyer who's really good at this, and you get Johnny Cochran and your O.J. Simpson, and you get off. If you don't have money and you end up with a public defender, and that public defender might actually be a good attorney if they had time to focus on your case, but since they don't, because they're working for you basically for free, they can't give enough time to your case. Therefore, they don't have time to come up with the details necessary to help you win. And therefore, you lose and you go to jail, go directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. This is what the legal system is actually about. Now, Donald Trump and the Trump administration, I think they have pretty pricey lawyers. What do y'all think? I think their lawyers are pretty good. Now, having a good lawyer doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, but it means you have a chance. They have a chance just because of the quality of the attorneys that they're bringing to the table. So there's a senator named Jacob Howard in 1866. He said the following. He argued that the framers excluded foreigners, quote unquote foreigners, lacking full allegiance, even though Howard's statements contradict other framers who explicitly intended broad inclusion. In other words, what I just told you. What I just told you is going to happen. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take small details that they can find in history that support their argument. They're going to take small legal procedures and frame it in a certain way to the Supreme Court justices and say, because of these precedents that we found and these details that we found, we believe Trump should be able to do this. The other side is going to argue the exact opposite, and it's all going to come down to who is better at presenting their argument. This is the reason why you pay more for a good lawyer. This is what it comes down to. So any of you ever end up in court, this is the reason why you pay more for a lawyer who's good, because they're better at the framing if it ends up going to court. Now, another thing a good lawyer is good at is bargaining and sidebars and making deals without having to go to trial, because going to trial costs a lot of money. And going to trial means you're giving yourself a 50-50 chance of winning or losing, depending on the situation. Like a criminal case, you might not want to go there. So all of these things factor in to how this works. And this is the reason why any of you parents out there, you're trying to tell your kid what to do for a living. They want to be a YouTuber or a streamer. Tell them to go get a law degree, because there will always be work if they're any good. If your kid is any good at being a lawyer, there will always be work, because there's always people going to court, especially in the United States, the most litigious society in the world. Continuing. Now, scholars say the historical record is being cherry picked. I say, of course it's being cherry picked. That's what lawyers do. That's the whole job of a lawyer, is to look at situations, cherry pick the details and the facts that best help your case, the case of your client, and then present those, excluding the others, or you bring up the ones that your opponent is going to bring up and you water them down to make them seem not relevant or not necessary, and you focus on yours and you overemphasize yours out of all proportion to convince the judge and or the jury that this is the best way to go. Of course, it's being cherry picked. So critics saying that the Trump attorneys are going to cherry pick certain legal precedent, I say, of course. And that's the same thing the opponent is going to do. They're going to take certain legal precedent and they're going to cherry pick that, and they're going to use theirs. You're going to use yours. And again, it becomes spy against spy. Who's better at framing this? This is all a framing battle. Everybody understand? Everybody follow me so far? Good. Next point. Lower courts have unanimously blocked this order. So Trump has tried this already. But lower level courts, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the country. So you only end up at the Supreme Court after you appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court. So they cited a case called by Wong Kim Ark. I mentioned this earlier. This is an 1898 case, which held that birthright citizenship applies regardless of who your parents are, regardless of their immigration status. And this makes this case a direct challenge to already set decisions, also known as stare decisis, which I already explained to you all. Right now, it's already explained by the Constitution that if both of your parents come to America illegally, without documentation, and they have you in Tennessee, you are a citizen. Even if your parents end up getting deported, you are still a citizen. You can go with them, as Tom Homan says, when they get deported, but you are a citizen of America, even though your parents are not. That's what birthright citizenship means. And this has already been established, again, 127 years ago. This was established as the law. Now, Donald Trump is trying to undo 127 years of precedent in this case, which has already been blocked by lower courts who already said no, 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 no. Now he's going all the way up to the Supreme Court to argue the same thing that everybody else said no to. That's why this is an uphill battle by Donald Trump. Why is he pushing this? I think he truly believes that this is the thing. I think it's also, it gives him some political capital with his supporters who agree with this. We don't want people becoming birthright citizens in America, especially if they have two illegal, undocumented parents. And this is an argument that I think Donald Trump's lawyers are going to use in his case, is that they're going to argue in front of the Supreme Court that, hey, yes, justices, there's 120, by then it's going to be 128 years of precedent of this being this way. However, we have some different circumstances right now. Different circumstances are our predecessor in the executive branch, that's Mr. Joe Biden. What do they call him? Scranton Joe. Scranton Joe, he signed the executive orders allowing a bunch of people to come into this country without going through the proper checks and balances to obtain citizenship, without taking the years and bureaucratic red tape that it normally takes to get into America with any kind of proper documentation. And they fast-tracked a whole bunch of people into legal status in the United States of America. A bunch of these people are having kids and they're becoming birthright citizens. And yes, we understand that this was the precedent set in 1898. However, it was set for a certain reason, for a certain type of people under certain circumstances that existed at that time. Those circumstances are completely different than the ones that exist now, justices. Therefore, we should be able to make adjustments because the circumstances are not the same. That means the rules should not be applied the same. That is a strong argument. They're going to need to use that. I don't know if Trump's lawyers are listening, but they should use that. I'll give it to you for free. They need to use that in front of the Supreme Court. Because otherwise, if I'm Clarence Thomas, if I'm Ketanji Brown Jackson, if I'm Amy Coney Barrett, I'm sitting there thinking, Trump and your lawyers, why the hell are y'all in front of us? After all the other courts already told y'all no. Y'all have come all the way to us, asking us to say something different than what they said. And why? Because you're arguing against something that's been established since 1898. Now, we're supposed to just undo it just because y'all came to us after everybody else already told you the same thing that we are apt to tell you. They need a unique argument that says this is an extenuating, unique circumstance that's different than the circumstances under which this law was first, or this amendment was first established. That's an argument that they have to make. And that's actually a pretty good argument. I still don't think that's enough. Personally, I still don't think that's enough to get the Supreme Court to say yes to this, but stranger things have occurred. So we'll see. Now, overturning this Wong Kim Ark decision would dismantle a century of immigration jurisprudence. That's the reason why this is challenging. All right, challenging the precedent that stood for 100 years. And one thing, if this happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even 50 years ago, remember the Dobbs decision when it came to abortion. maybe you gotta challenge. Maybe you have something, but 100 years, this is gonna be tough. This is gonna be a really challenging one. You're gonna undo 100 years of precedent, especially on something that is such a hot button issue right now, and Donald Trump being probably the most visible figure when it comes to this topic. So again, this will be a good one if the Supreme Court says anything, even intimating that they agree with Donald Trump. Now, Solicitor General Sauer argues that subject to the jurisdiction, that's the term that they're arguing over. Subject to the jurisdiction means if you're born here, you're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. It excludes undocumented parents because they, open quote, owe allegiance to another sovereign. That's another country, close quote, creating a newly legal category outside of existing doctrines. This is actually a good point. So let me explain what that means. What they're saying is that this phrase, subject to the jurisdiction, which is part of the 14th Amendment, they're saying that this doesn't apply to parents who are not documented and are here illegally. Why? Because they are actually citizens of another country. So they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because they're not citizens of the United States. They're not supposed to be here in the way that they're here anyway. So they're not subject to our jurisdiction. So any kids that they have, this creates a whole new legal category, and we got to create new rules for these new terms and these new times and these new situations. Because our predecessor, Scranton Joe, allowed a whole bunch of people to come in this country at unprecedented levels that otherwise were not happening before. Therefore, we need an unprecedented ruling and an unprecedented rule that applies to this new situation that never occurred before. That is a compelling argument to put before a Supreme Court. Now, again, is this enough for them to say, yes, Trump can do this by executive order? I'm not sure, but this is something that they absolutely will argue in court. That makes this a more compelling case. So 10 minutes ago, I wasn't as convinced. 15 minutes ago, I was not as convinced. But now as I go through more of these points, now it actually sounds like Trump actually has an argument here. Now, again, I'm still not convinced they're going to win, but they got a chance. They have a puncher's chance. Now, this theory that has been thrown out there by the Solicitor General has never been validated by any federal court, but so what? That's the reason why they're going to this Supreme Court right now. So it doesn't matter what's happened in the past in terms of that point. Now, the challengers argue that undocumented immigrants are subject to U.S. law because they can be arrested, they can be taxed, and they can be prosecuted. These things are all true. Proving that they fall squarely within the amendment's jurisdiction requirement. I say that's a pretty solid, airtight argument. And this is where Trump is running into trouble. Trump administration runs into a brick wall with this one right here. Is that if you're here in the United States without proper documentation and you break a law, what happens? You get arrested. If you get a job somehow, some way, and your employer pays you, what do? You pay taxes. And if you get arrested and you are charged with a crime, what do? You get prosecuted. All these things are part of the jurisdiction of the United States of America. Whether you are documented or not, you still get to go through all of this. Many of you call this due process. This is part of the deal. So what is Trump saying? He's saying they're not subject to the jurisdiction when they actually are. These are 3 examples of you being subject to jurisdiction, whether you're documented or not. What is Trump's argument against this? I'm not quite sure what the argument is. They got to come up with something. So they say jurisdiction has always meant legal reach, not political loyalty. And that's a pretty solid argument. Again, Trump, y'all got to come up with something for this one. So what Trump is trying to say is that these illegal immigrants or these undocumented people, they have loyalty to another country because that's where they're actually citizens. And they're saying that's what jurisdiction means. What Trump's opponents are saying is that jurisdiction just means if you do something against the law, you're going to be processed by the law, which is what colloquially, when we hear the word jurisdiction, that's usually what we're thinking about. We're thinking about courts, process, due process, going to court, going to jail, seeing a judge, having a lawyer appointed for you if you cannot afford one, everybody getting their day in court. When we hear jurisdiction, that's generally what it means colloquially. Trump is trying to come up with a reinterpretation of several things here all at the same time. He has to get all of them right in order to win this. That's the reason why this is an uphill battle. If he doesn't get all of these, then he loses. Any one of them fails, he loses. So this is where it is an issue for the Trump side. Now, the court is 6-3 conservative leaning. Now, this creates uncertainty. This is the reason why Donald Trump and his lawyers have a puncher's chance in this situation, because the Supreme Court leans 6-3 conservative. And Trump's appointees could view this as an immigration control issue rather than a constitutional structure one, which is exactly how Trump should argue this. That's their opportunity right here. This argument should not be we're arguing the structure of the Constitution. The argument that Trump's lawyers should be making, and I think they're going to make it, is that this is about immigration because of what I just explained to you. Scranton Joe, Sleepy Joe, opened up the border, essentially opened up the border. He didn't technically open it up, but he opened up the border and he allowed all these people to come into our country. Now that all these people are in our country who would not have gotten in under our previous laws had they been being enforced properly, well, the laws that we do have just weren't being enforced. Had we had those laws in place, these people wouldn't be here. But now they are here, and now they're having kids, and now we're giving citizenship to a bunch of people who should never have gotten into the country in the first damn place. Or people who are born to people who should never got into the country in the first damn place. Therefore, Supreme Court, we need to create a new situation to deal with this unique catastrophe that we're dealing with created by our previous administration. That is a solid argument. And that's why this is going to be an interesting case. Even though I still am not sure Trump can win. It's still an interesting case. So they want to shift how the textualism is applied. And again, as I told you all before, the lawyers in court, this is not no Matlock. This is not Law and Order where they get into court and they do this fiery rhetoric and they rile up the jury and they get these made for TV moments. That is not what the lawyers are arguing in this case. This is all tight, detailed, procedural details that they're arguing in front of the Supreme Court, getting down to the letter of what a word means and how we're going to interpret this and what does this one mean? How do we define that one? What's the precedent on this one? There's a whole bunch of mental load that the Supreme Court justices are going to have to digest here to decide what to listen to and what not to listen to. That's what this comes down to. So I still think precedent is on the side of Trump's opponents, but being it is a 6-3 conservative majority, and the way they want to argue this could happen. If I had to bet money, I'm betting it doesn't happen, but I could lose my money. So experts warn that the court may split over originalist versus precedent-based interpretations. And actually, I don't think they may split. I think the court will split. Now, how much they split is what matters because that determines whether this goes through or doesn't go through. Now, critics say that this order's logic retroactively questions the citizenship of 20 million Americans whose parents were not citizen when they were born. That threatens decades of legal stability. I say, yes, it does. And I say Trump's argument is exactly. So this is one point that both sides agree on. Now, the question is, why do they agree? They agree for different reasons. The administration denies retroactively, but the underlying theory undermines its own assurance. Again, they're both saying the same thing here on this point, but they're just saying it for different reasons. So it's a matter of how does the court feel about it, being that the court is 6-3 conservative. There's a chance here. There's a chance. I'm not sure it's going to happen. But there's a chance. That's the reason why it's in front of the Supreme Court. Now, Trump officials estimate that ending birthright for non-citizen parents would reduce illegal immigration. The number they say is 20 to 30% by removing anchor baby incentives, though this projection is widely disputed. In other words, anchor baby incentives. Anchor baby is when a person is born to two non-citizen parents. Now they're a citizen of the United States. So let's say their parents got to leave. Their parents got to go back to Argentina, where they came from. But now their daughter is an American citizen. Well, the daughter being an American citizen, the parents have a better chance overall of getting a visa or being able to come to the United States and become citizens simply because they're related, direct, immediate family related to someone who is a citizen. Have y'all found this to be true? Any of you know anyone who fits this description? Give me a yes or no in the comments. Any of you have seen this before? That's what an anchor baby is. Well, not all that I explained. Anchor babies is a baby who's born to non-citizen parents in America. Now they're anchored to America, whereas the parents are not technically. But because their daughter or their son is a citizen in America, then that gives them, the parents, a better chance of being able to come back here and actually do it the right way. And what Trump and his team are saying is that they want to reduce that so this kind of stuff does not happen as much. Whereas Trump's opponents are saying this is a great thing because it allows more people opportunity. If you're born here, you're born here, and that's just bottom line, black and white, no arguments. That's what this comes down to. Now, they say it will reduce illegal immigration. So their argument is going to be this is actually a way of getting illegal immigration to become lesser and not be such a stain on our country. Whereas the opponents are saying immigration is actually a good thing. They're not going to use the word illegal. Trump's going to call it illegal. They're going to just say immigration, period. We're a country of immigrants, et cetera. So y'all know the arguments. Y'all know the whole scenario, what they said. Now, DHS, that's Kristi Noem's team, Department of Homeland Security. They say internal modeling is not released publicly. They're claiming 20 to 30%. Others are saying that 20, 30% is an exaggeration. I think there's a fair argument to say 20, 30% just based on what we know from what the Biden administration was allowing in terms of immigration across our southern border. So that's a framing point. This is not really about the details of framing point. Now, immigration groups, of course, they're going to go against this. They warn that hospitals, schools, and state agencies will face chaos trying to verify parental status in real time before issuing birth certificates. So this would basically cause a whole bunch of clogging of the system if a child, a newborn baby, is not allowed birthright citizenship by default, because right now that's what it is. So a hospital or school already knows you're a citizen because you were born in America. We ain't got to think twice about it. But if this executive order goes through, now every time a child is born, they would have to verify who are the parents. The mom is there. What if the dad's not there? How do we know? Now they got to do all this extra work to get this going. And they can't issue a birth certificate yet because they don't have all the information. Critics say this builds an unworkable bureaucracy around childbirth. So they're saying it's just too much work. We don't want to do this. We don't want to have to do all this if Trump passes this executive order. I think the Trump side says, okay, if that's the best argument you got, y'all got a problem. That's not the best argument they have. This is like the number 12 argument that they have. But this is an argument. This is something they can throw in there as just more wood on the fire. But this is not the fire itself. Now, the case is fast-tracked for April 2026 oral arguments. So any of you want to know how fast the justice system moves, listen to what I just said. It is fast-tracked for 5 months from now. That's the fast track of the court system. 5 months. That's why you want to stay out of court, because the whole time you're waiting, you're paying your lawyers. So oral arguments happen in April, and the court sees this as urgent and potentially willing to recalibrate constitutional interpretation in real time during an election cycle, which is 2026, which is a big deal because primaries for a lot of the legislature, those are your Congress people, will be happening right around that time, either already happened or about to happen. And again, this is a fast track. They say that SCOTUS, that's the Supreme Court of the United States, by the way, they see this as urgent. Is urgent. So it's now early December, and they're going to listen to you in April of next year. That's urgent. 5 months away. That's urgency, folks. Just in case any of you want to know what urgency looks like in the court system. 5 months. Now, arguments will occur in the middle of Trump's deportation initiative. Yes, it will. Trump's whole entire administration is a deportation initiative. So I don't know what they're talking about. But anyway, if upheld, the ruling would immediately affect 300,000 annual births, and it would destabilize family unity protections, increasing deportations of parents, even though their children were born in the United States. I say exactly. That's exactly what will happen. Everybody caught that, what I just explained? If Trump was able to get this through, and the Supreme Court says, yes, you can by executive order stop birthright citizenship, a whole bunch of annual births, up to 300,000 of them. Now, family unity protections are removed, i.e. just because you have a child born in the United States does not mean we can't deport your ass. And they're going to start deporting people with newborn babies. You had a baby last week? Great. Get out. That's what's going to happen if Trump is able to pass this. Now, is that necessarily some tragedy? Personally, I don't think so. Because, I mean, the baby's the baby. As long as the baby's with the parents, the baby's in good hands. The parents are going to be arguing, hey, we have a kid born in America. We just had a baby. How are you going to kick us out of the country? And Tom Homan is going to say, because you don't have proper documentation, you shouldn't be here. Get the hell out. That is a fair argument. It's a fair question. It's a fair answer. Now, Donald Trump's opponents are going to make him look completely inhumane if this passes. That's what they're going to do. Because as soon as there's a baby born in Indiana on Tuesday, and then they're being deported on Friday, that's going to become a big news story. CNN's going to have it. MSNBC is going to have it. Rachel Maddow will talk about it. And they're going to make it seem like Trump is the scum of the earth because he is deporting a newborn baby. They're not going to tell you he's deporting a baby born to parents who came here without proper documentation. No, it's going to be Donald Trump deports a newborn baby in Indiana. Oh my God, I can't believe he did it. If this goes through, guarantee that headline is coming. And that doesn't necessarily mean Donald Trump did something wrong. It means he's actually following the Constitution as it is now interpreted if he's able to get this passed. So get ready for this one. If it happens. If this happens, this will be great. Again, a great boon for people who talk about current events like me. But it'll also be a shitstorm for the Trump administration. They're going to get a ton of questions, and Donald Trump will be happy to answer them, I'm sure. Now, challengers argue that this creates a permanent underclass with no civic pathway. I disagree. That's a very interesting framing, very emotional framing. They say this creates a permanent underclass. Well, first of all, how do you call creating a permanent underclass to say that if two people come here and they don't have proper documentation, they have a kid, they still got to leave with the kid? How is that an underclass? There is no class. There's no class at all. That's not an underclass. Underclass are citizens who aren't treated humanely, or they don't have food, clothing, shelter. We already got a permanent underclass in America. That already exists. So to say that this creates a permanent underclass is a false frame, because if you are here in this country without proper documentation, you shouldn't be in the country. So there's no an underclass of people who are here and they probably ain't leaving because they're citizens. You can leave because you came. If you showed up, you can leave. You can leave. So this creating a permanent underclass, I disagree with. You're in another country and you don't have proper documentation, they kick you out. They don't say, oh, well, you're making me feel like an underclass citizen because, or a no class citizen because you're kicking me out. No, we're kicking you out because you are not a citizen. You don't belong here. Oh, you had a kid while you were here? Okay, that means you did something while you're in the process of doing the wrong thing. So that means the something that you did, that counts when we throw you out. So you come here under false pretenses, without proper documentation, not going through the proper channels. Then you did something while you were still not going through the proper channels. Then the penalty that you get is you and everything you did while you were doing this improperly, all of it has to leave. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, Frank. You did something wrong while doing something. You did something neutral while doing something wrong. Then the neutral thing you did, it's a transitive property from you doing something wrong. It goes with it. And now you got to go with the thing that you did neutral. I'm completely fine with that argument. Now, conservative commentators frame this as restoring, open quote, constitutional sanity, close quote, by ending what they call a misreading of the 14th Amendment that was created by this Wong King Ark ruling. I say, if I'm putting on my conservative hat, I say I completely understand that argument. Now, of course, there's an argument on the other side. I'll tell you what that is in a moment. But I'm looking at, if I'm looking at this on a conservative side, I completely understand the arguments of conservatives that this is bringing back constitutional sanity, because what happens is, for those who don't understand, is that the Constitution was written 150 or so years ago. It was written for the world that we were in at the time. The framers were very smart people, and they projected what the world may change into over time. So they put things in there that were designed for not only the current when they wrote it, but also the future. At the same time, some of the ways that what's in the Constitution gets interpreted or continues to be interpreted is not based on the original spirit of what was put into the Constitution. This is the reason why you end up in court arguing about the Constitution, because people are like, well, yes, that's what's in it in black and white. The letter of it says this, but let's look at the spirit of it. Is that the reason why it was written? And the answer often is no, that's not the reason why it was written that way. So we need to reinterpret this entire situation because that's not what it was supposed to mean. And that is a fair argument. It's a legitimate argument. So that's the reason why this is going to court. And a conservative making that argument has a case that needs to be heard. This is the reason why this is going to SCOTUS. Now, supporters say modern immigration realities demand reinterpretation. I've already explained this to you 3 times. The new realities of what happened in immigration, specifically during the Biden-Harris administration, demands a reinterpretation of what it means to have birthright citizenship because of the extenuating circumstances of what was created by Biden's executive order that said we're just going to relax the enforcement of our border laws. And this is a fair thing for the Trump administration to ask. That alone might be enough for them to convince SCOTUS, actually. Just on that point alone might be enough for SCOTUS to say, you know what, just on that alone, we do need to have some temporary reinterpretation of things because, well, the Biden administration temporarily reinterpreted enforcement of our laws. They did. There's no argument against that. Now, the liberal side, though, they say this ruling could lay groundwork for future attacks on other birth-based rights. And they are completely right. Birth-based rights such as voting, Naturalization standards, equal protection, as political actors will test constitutional flexibility. They are 100% correct. So if I take off my conservative hat and I put on my liberal hat, then they are right as well. There's strong arguments on both sides here. That's the reason why this is going to the Supreme Court, because the arguments are very strong on both sides, and there's a legitimate case either side could make on several points. I've given you all the points right here today. What the liberals are saying is that if this passes and Trump is able to end birthright citizenship by executive order, well, is Donald Trump going to stop there? What do y'all think? Give me a yes or a no. If SCOTUS says Donald Trump can end birthright citizenship with executive order, do you think he's going to stop there and not do anything else? Do you think that's all he's going to do? He's going to end birthright citizenship by executive order, and he said, all right, I took care of that, and move on to something completely different, say yes. Do you think he's going to try to go further and say, well, if I could do that, then maybe I could do this and this and this? Say no. I say no. I say he's going to do more stuff. I think Trump administration will do more if they're able to do this. He's not stopping there. Donald Trump will do more if the way I worded that question was kind of tricky. I think I might have confused some of you. But Donald Trump's going to do more. And when I say Donald Trump, I mean the Trump administration. So, for example, if they go to SCOTUS and SCOTUS says you can end birthright citizenship by executive order, well, here's what else they might do. They might say, well, hey, since you can't be a birthright citizen, how about anybody who was born here to parents who were not citizens, how about they can't vote? Yeah, how about we take away their voting rights? They're going to try that. How about we take away naturalization? They might try that. What if we take away equal protection? They may try that. I'm not saying they will absolutely do it, but I guarantee Donald Trump's going to take a look. Like, hey, we got the Supreme Court to go for that. Okay, how about we try to get these people blocked from voting? Because what are most of these people voting? Most of these people are voting Democrat. Donald Trump's a Republican. And even though he's not running for anything anymore, Donald Trump probably wants his his successors to win. He probably wants J.D. Vance, if it's J.D., to win the presidency in 2028. Well, if you have fewer birthright citizens who are able to vote and they're probably voting Democrat, then I give J.D. Vance a better chance of winning. Does it not? There's going to be another midterm it's technically not a midterm, but another legislative vote happening in 2028. After 26, there'll be another one in 2028. Okay, what if those people can't vote? Better chance the Republicans win. What if J.D. Vance comes into office in January 2029 with a supermajority in both the House and the Senate? What do you think he's going to do? This is what people are saying the Trump administration and / MAGA might do if all this happens. Because the people in politics are going to test constitutional flexibility if it shows that they already have some flexibility. If it shows that the Supreme Court will be flexible on this, what else will they be flexible on? It's only human nature to test it and find out. So they see it as a start of a broader deconstruction, and that's what they're going to call it. Trump is just picking apart the Constitution and undoing the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, people argue to take apart the Constitution when it serves them. They argue to maintain it when it doesn't serve them. So this is why you got to take all the shit that these people say with a grain of salt. Now, public opinion is sharply divided. National polls say 52% of people oppose ending birthright citizenship. In other words, it's about half and half on the subject. But 65% of Republicans support Trump's order. Republicans. They support Trump's order, reflecting a cultural rather than a legal split. Now, both sides are going to have mass protests ahead of the April hearings. Yeah, this is going to be a big story. Now, again, it's not happening until April, but this is going to be a big thing when it happens. It's already a story, but until something actually happens, not really a story. Something's actually going to happen in April. Now, last point, legal experts say that even a narrow ruling in Trump's favor could rewrite the meaning of jurisdiction, which is 100% true. Even if the Supreme Court denies Trump overall, if they concede some points in this process, it opens the door for further work by the Trump administration. So it's really a matter of, first of all, what does the Supreme Court decide, number one? Then number two, what's their explanation for their decision? So let's say the majority, they say 6-3, yes, he can do it. Somebody's going to write the majority opinion. This is how it works. Somebody on the SCOTUS side is going to write the majority opinion, basically speaking for everybody who voted in favor and say, here's why we're saying it. And here's the legal reference points that we are using and our personal interpretation that we're using to explain why we voted the way we voted. They're going to put that out. Then there's the dissenting opinion. That would be from the justices who voted against it but lost. Somebody's going to write that one and say, here's why we disagree with the ruling of our coworkers. And they're going to give their explanation for why they disagree. And both of those go into the record as legal precedent for why I'm agreeing and why I disagree. Now, legal experts say this could rewrite the meaning of the word jurisdiction. Again, so when you hear me reading definitions and some of you bring up terms and say, well, look up this term and this means this and this means that, understand that the meaning of a word can be reinterpreted based on who's using it, why they're using it, the context in which they're using it, and on what grounds are we reinterpreting the term. Again, remember the jab? That term meant one thing in 2019 and meant a completely different thing in 2021. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The interpretation of the word changed based on people who had power saying, we got to change what this word means because we told people one thing and then something different happened. So we got to reinterpret the word so that people don't feel like they got fooled. Everybody knows what I mean without me saying it. Yes? Okay. So they're saying this could open a Pandora's box of competing claims about who is fully inside America's legal boundaries. I say, yes, it does. That's the reason why it's going to the Supreme Court, as I said 20 times already. Now, critics fear that cascading legal disputes across immigration, taxation, and criminal law will occur. I say, yes, they will. Guaranteed. So, again, any of you have kids and you want your kids to have a really good job getting out of college, tell them to go get a law degree because in the next 4 years, especially if Trump is able to do this, there'll be plenty of legal disputes about immigration law, taxation law, criminal law. There'll be plenty of legal cases about this. So your kids, they can have plenty of casework if they go get into the legal space, especially if they're working in DC on these types of things, because there'll be plenty of cases going on. Now, I'm kind of joking, but I'm actually not. All that being said, everybody, let's get into the comments. I will fire up my soundboard, my trusty soundboard. Let's see. Fire up my trusty soundboard. First, I do need to take a restroom break. Oh, and by the way, I'm excited to let you all know we got some new sounds. I'm going to debut the new sounds. I got the same sounds as before, but we added some new sounds. So we just added some more sounds to the roster. I'm going to show y'all the new sounds. I was looking these up yesterday. But we got our classic sounds, first of all. Strawberry cheesecake. Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear that. Let me play that one again. We got our classic. Strawberry cheesecake. We still got that one. If you say something actually good, we got this one. We got the ad hominem sound. Is that like a personal attack or something? We got the non sequitur and this is the ones when people just say something that doesn't make any sense. We got the. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay. We got the. Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried. We got the appeal to ridicule. Oh, I like your funny words, Magic Man. We got the emotional. Emotional, damn it. We got the loaded question. We got the triple double. Oh, baby, it's triple. Oh, yeah. Then we have triple kill. We might use that sometimes for the triple. Now we got a few new ones. I'm going to take my restroom break first before I introduce you to the new ones. And then I'll show you what they are, tell you when we're using. Give me 90 seconds and we'll get to the comments. All right, so introducing the new sounds. So these sounds are all related to the same thing because I was thinking about this yesterday. Sometimes I get somebody in the comments section who is just going and going and going, saying dumb shit that doesn't make any sense, but they clearly want the attention. So we're gonna give them the attention. So if somebody's just saying a bunch of dumb stuff, we got this one.
Put the phone down! This is for my safety. Put the phone down! This is for my safety. Put the phone down! This is for my safety. Put the phone down!
All right, so that's put the phone down. People who just keep talking. Then we got.
It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more.
All right, that's if somebody's just going on and on. And then we got Michael Jordan.
Stop it. Get some help.
All right, that one.
Stop it. Get some help.
All right, so now we got those for anybody who's just going on and on, talking dumb. So I think I'm gonna give people combinations. I'll probably give you multiples of those. If somebody's in here talking crazy, which eventually we'll get to use that. Maybe not today, but one day in the future. So Leilani says they better let them take the baby with them. Yes. So Tom Homan was very clear about this in January. I heard him being interviewed because I didn't know who he was before, but I heard him being interviewed right after Trump. It was either right before the inauguration or right after in January. And they were interviewing Tom Homan because he got named the border czar. You remember that was the title that Kamala Harris rejected. She tried to distance herself from being a border czar because she had never actually been to the border. And because of the catastrophe at the border, she didn't want that on her record, but she was unable to do that successfully. Tom Homan accepted the title of border czar. He said, yes, I am the border czar, and here's what's going to happen. And they asked him, because people were framing it like, hey, Tom Homan's going to deport kids and not deport the parents, and he's separating families and all that. And Tom Homan said, no, that is not true. What we're going to do is if there's one person in the family, let's say the dad has to be deported, but the mom is okay and the kids are okay, we will tell the mom and the kids, listen, dad's getting deported. You can go with him if you want, or you can stay, but he's getting deported either way. So you have a choice. So, Leilani, to answer your question, yes, they always have a choice as to everybody goes or just the one person goes, but there is an option. Madame says, I get it, but Trump doing this based on racism and hate. His intentions are to make USA only for whites. Okay, so you get a couple of them here. First of all, Trump is doing this based on racism and hate.
Strawberry cheese.
I say straw man. I think Trump is doing it because I don't think it's because of racism and hate. I don't think he's racist. I don't think he's hateful. I think Donald Trump is looking at what the previous administration did, and he is framing this one way politically is that we had to go against our opponent, which is the same thing his opponent did to him. So that's one thing. That's the reason why that's a straw man. Then you're saying his intentions are to make USA only for whites. Well, first of all, how the hell is he going to do that? That's kind of ridiculous for you to say that. So you get this one.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
That's an absurd absolute, what you're claiming right there. And you're saying this is based on racism and hate, which means you're reading his emotions, which is an appeal to emotion.
Emotional, damn it.
And the fact that you actually picked up your phone and typed this out.
Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down.
All right, so congratulations to you, madam. You get the first Russell Westbrook triple-double award of the day. Congratulations. So Carter said, we have got to stop incentivizing illegal immigration. Well, we did. As soon as Joe Biden wasn't president anymore, it stopped. It's over. Murphy DeMott said, the liberal judges have always went left. Yes, and sometimes the conservative judges may agree with them. I don't know if this is a left or right conversation, really, and hopefully SCOTUS isn't, they don't make all their decisions based on that. We don't want them to, but this is what people expect. Mimi said, in 100 years, it'll be 100 times worse. What will? What are you referring to? Jake said, while having legal status to be here via the tourist visa. Yeah, if they have a visa. So a lot of people don't even have a visa. It's hard to get a visa. Carl said, I need Chrissy to eat a burger. Just saying, totally off topic. Sorry. Why, you think she's too skinny? IDK said, you can't have them all on welfare. Immigration is good to a certain extent. It's overblown. Okay, that's fine. I don't know if they're all on welfare, though. I get what you're saying, but I don't know if that's true. Ugly said, Trump's argument, illegal and legal immigration are two separate issues completely. Opponent loses bid. Yes, that is his argument, which should be the argument. Legal immigration is fine because Donald Trump's married to a woman who's an immigrant. J.D. Vance is married to an immigrant. So obviously they don't have a problem with immigration itself. And a lot of people try to frame it as if, well, how are these people going against immigrants when they're married to immigrants? Well, they're not going against immigrants. They're going against illegal immigrants. And that detail matters. IDK says it's unfair to immigrants to get grants, loans, and food stamps, healthcare, housing. Well, it's unfair if they're getting it and citizens are not getting it first. I agree with you. And that should be fixed. Those things should be prioritizing the citizens, the people who are here first. Even if you become a citizen, it should be an order of operations and a hierarchy. The citizens who were born here to parents who were born here to parents who were born here, they get it first. Then everybody else falls back in line. Same way that if us as Americans are in another country, we don't go to the front of the line in priority in terms of these health and human services that the government gives out because we're not citizens. And even if we become citizens, we're not first in line because of that. Carl would say you have to show ID to get a birth certificate for your child. At least we had to when we had ours. Maybe you do. It depends on who does the birth certificate because my son was born a home birth, and what's that woman's name? The midwife. She wrote up the documentation for the birth certificate. I don't know if she asked for our IDs. Maybe she did. I don't remember. Murphy the Mutt said, wheels of justice turn slowly. Yeah, you're right about that. If you want to call it justice. Virus says, you always protect your house, always. Yes. I can't put those two words together, what you said there. That'd get me banned from TikTok. Shauna McD said it must end. What must end? Ugly said bet. Bet on what? Are you asking for a bet? Good body for life. Thanks for the follow. Scooter said bye. Ugly said can't separate the babies. Right. What are you saying? Virus said I'm an immigrant and independent Trump supporter. He is not perfect, but perfect for the job. Fair enough. It's the reason why you have the right to vote. 1992 Mechanic said they are using the baby to be able to stay. They don't care about that child, only themselves. I don't know if I bought the second part, but the first part you might be right about. HJYU says, does anyone watch Rachel Maddow? I don't watch Rachel Maddow, but I know who she is. So she's apparently doing a good job getting somebody's attention. Trish W. Dog said, meh, they need to go. They use pregnancy as a loophole. Yeah, somebody else just said that. So I understand. But the rule says they can stay. That's the whole point. Nick 89, good morning. Not influencing said, I don't understand why this is so hard for people on the left to understand. Well, it's not hard for them to understand. They understand it. It's just they have a different interpretation of the same facts that you're looking at. So what I challenge most of you to understand, and when someone has a different opinion than you, is usually not that they don't understand what you understand. They understand it very well, the same way you do. The only difference is they're interpreting it one way and you're interpreting things another way. So this is all about framing. I tell you all this all the time, that these political conversations are not about understanding versus not understanding or fact versus fiction or any of that black and white stuff. This is about framing. Same information. I present it this way. You present it that way. That's what this is about. K. Norris said, what do you think are the odds of getting it passed? Today, as of today, I say is about 30% chance that Trump can get an agreement from SCOTUS that he can do this. But again, the fact that it's going in front of SCOTUS means he has a chance. I could be wrong and he could end up actually getting it. Karina says, I've actually met people to come here just to give birth for free, then go back. Okay, I've heard a few of you have said that here today. So I assume this is a real thing. While their kid claims citizenship. Yeah, that's what I've heard. So a bunch of you are saying that. Jazz said DACA is not a pathway to citizenship either. Okay. Trish W said, my boyfriend came here not knowing any English the legal way. He's now a citizen and a professor. Well, yeah, so he went the legal way. He did all the paperwork and he went through all the red tape, which is what you're supposed to do. Ann Withane said, thank you for the follow. Marky Man said, how many hours does a justice actually work a day? I don't know. I don't know what they do all day. But it's a good job, I guess, if you can get it. Carl said the Trump administration needs to focus on saving. They are preserving parents' rights for everyone. Will said there are people who come here and get documents and on a fast track. The system is rigged. Well, during the Biden administration, it was set up for them to get not necessarily documented, but protected status. Shauna D, 1992 mechanic. Thank you. Will said, did Melania go through the proper channels? This is totally transparent. I got to go. I believe that she did because otherwise she would have got deported. I think she probably went through the proper channels. And by the way, if you're an immigrant and you don't have all your documentation, but you marry a citizen, then you become a citizen just by marriage. And she's married to Donald Trump. So she's a citizen just by being married to Donald Trump. Ugly said, take care, sir. You ain't right, but you're cool. Okay, I'll take that as a compliment. Terrible to behold said, "Don't break the law while you're breaking the law is a rule I try to live by." Yeah, pretty much. Well, is the second part is not the thing. You're not breaking the law. Having a kid is not breaking the law. But if you're here illegally with improper documentation, you did something wrong. Then you have a kid while you're here illegally. That means that we should deport you and the kid because you weren't supposed to be here. So you had a kid, then you and the kid got to go. That's what I see it. That's how I see it as. Y'all tell me what you see. Nina said they Virus 365, you posted the same comment like 4 times. Don't spam my comments. Nina Banton said, then amend the Constitution to fit the time. Yes, exactly. That's the argument that Trump's going to make. Carla said they should have put in term limits. Well, Congress would have to vote for term limits for themselves. So basically, they'd be voting to fire themselves from their jobs. Sammy Lee said, we have a call to action. His name is Jerry Lee Clark. Shelby Township, Alabama, was arrested for anti-Trump sign. Prosecuting attorney Ben Feller, Shelby Township, the man was arrested for painting fireworks to go ahead dynamite to protect his Trump sign in a racist town. Okay. All right, now I just said it. Keep on living says, like the Bible, interpret it a million ways. That is correct. That's exactly what this is. And that's what the legal system is for, interpretation. It's not about facts. Mr. K. Pessel, thank you for the follow. Shauna said, that's why Trump will win this. I'm not so sure. If I had to bet money, smart money would bet on him not winning this. But if I wanted to maximize my returns, then I would bet on him winning because it would give me much better odds. The odds are against him, so that's why betting on him would actually be good because if you win, then you win a whole lot of money. Jazz Does It says, like taking a Bible verse out of context, you need context. Yes, exactly. So the same thing that Keep On Living said, Jazz, you said the same thing. This all comes down to who is better at framing their interpretation and can you sell the Supreme Court, those 9 justices, on agreeing with you. That's what this comes down to. K. Norris said, what are the odds the Supreme Court will rule in President Trump's favor? Again, as I said, I think it's about 30% as it stands today. Echo said 50-50. I mean, technically it's 50-50, but I say it's about 70. I say it's about 30-70 that he wins this, simply because he's going against 100 years of precedent, which is very difficult to do. Tarek Marin, thank you for the heart. Broken Truth, thanks for the follow. Karina said, no, he will vote citizens from groups he deems dangerous to our country. Well, he absolutely will do that. That's happening. I can guarantee you that. Carla said they aren't citizens and only citizens should vote. Well, again, that's what I'm saying. They'll go further. They do this, they're going to get to the next one. Scooter said, I don't think he would do that. I think he would. Broken Truth said, but wouldn't that mean that he and his family would have to go? No, Donald Trump's a citizen. He was born in America. His parents were not immigrants. Marky Man said, we still need Greenland, the 51st state. Yeah, I don't think they were serious about that. Mechanic said, don't matter if it happened in 2005 or 1995 if you were born here by illegals. Well, it does because one of the things that courts make decisions based on is legal precedent. So if you have 120 plus year legal precedent, it's very hard to overturn that precedent without a very compelling argument. Now, if it happened 2 years ago, then you got an easier chance of overturning that because it just happened. It's new. But one that's been standing for 100 years plus, that one's going to be difficult, especially the way the Trump opponents are going to frame this as he's only doing this because he's racist and xenophobic. They're going to use that against him. Whether you believe it or not, they're going to use it. Kathleen said, no, he will keep pushing until everyone gets out so we go back in time where we will have slaves. Okay, I see what you're saying there.
Emotional, damn it. It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more.
Never trust those with power said America is on its way back and it doesn't include anything besides hard work and God. Okay, fair enough. Carla said we need to enforce the laws of America, period, focused on helping our citizens. I agree with that, enforcing the law. Now, it's a matter of who's in charge and how much the law gets enforced. That's what it comes down to. Broken Truth said they want to rewrite history. Well, both sides say that about the other side. So who are you talking about? Mechanic said, exactly, they're okay with taking away the Second Amendment. Yes, which I think is crazy. A lot of people don't really understand the value of the Second Amendment is not about us with each other. It's about us with the government. Chesik 81, thank you. Chuckster, thanks for the follow. Nico, thank you for the share. User 960, thanks for the share. Mama Wallace said, birthright citizenship is not for your anchor babies. Well, that's Trump's argument. So we'll see if they get it. Krishna Kumar, thank you for the share. Carlos said, I'm interested in someone finding a way of getting rid of DEI Kentanji. Well, the only way you get rid of her from what? SCOTUS? She would have to quit. And that's a lifetime job. And Kentanzi ain't that young, so I don't know. I guess she'll be around another 30 years. So wait 30 years, Carla, and then she'll be gone. Urban Greek said, I'm sorry I did not vote for Trump, but I do agree having babies here doesn't make you an American. Well, that's the argument that Trump's making. So let's see what happens. Broken Truth, thank you. Rosa Nicosia said, but the Biden administration did the same thing by allowing illegal immigrants to flood the country. The same thing as what? I mean, the whole point was that Biden administration, what they did was relax the enforcement of the laws at the border. That's what they did. Or that's what Biden did by executive order. And therefore, more people came into the country. And that's the reason why Trump is saying, here's the reason why we need to do it now because of this extenuating circumstance. That is a legitimate argument by Trump. Rosa said to gain more Democratic votes. Yes, exactly. I get it. Broken Truth. Appreciate it. Urban Greek says only immigrants having babies here in America anyway. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Overall, I've heard that. Echoes said I'm hungry. Well, only food we got here is, we got the chicken and the pie. We forget about that. Yes, we got the new sounds. But we only use them in certain circumstances. Rel 116 said, I stand with Trump. Fair enough. Echo said, -1 here in Pennsylvania. I don't want to go to work. Yeah, I saw that this morning. I was looking at the Philadelphia weather. It was 17 degrees. That's crazy. Even Orlando was like 50. Down here in South Florida, it's about 69 degrees this morning. I ran outside. It was 69 degrees at about 5 a.m. Marky Man said, I love boiled chicken. I just heard him in the background. I don't know if I ever had boiled chicken. Wifey Tips, you joined from a repost. Marky Man, good morning. Thank you for the hearts. Wifey Tips. Carla said, we wish you a Merry Christmas. And I think you meant Happy New Year. Wifey Tips, thanks for the Go Popular. Oh, I lost my spot in the comments here. All right, here we go. No, I lost it. Where was it? Oh, here it is. Carla said, oh no, where is Big Sam? I didn't see any Big Sams in the comments here today. Karina said, love that one. Nana said, you need a crying baby sound too. I might look that up if I remember it. Not influencers say, going to have to use those a lot. Maybe. Sometimes people gas out in the comments before I even get around to reading the comments. Brian Richards said, so you've seen some of the case, but you think Trump will win? Give odds both ways as it stands now. I already answered the question like 3 times. Why is my phone ringing? All right. So I say it's about 30% as it stands today. And I didn't see the case. What I did was look into what's being said about it. That's all. This is all public news, the stuff that I brought up to you all. I got an Amazon delivery coming, Whole Foods Amazon delivery, and the person keeps calling, then they hang up. So I don't know what they're doing. Maddie said, perfect additions. Thank you. Carl said, stop it, get some help. Yes, actually, Michael Jordan from like early in his career, a video. Christopher Nelson, thank you for the follow. Echo said they will be used today. Promise. I've been reading the comments. Yeah, but sometimes people say that stuff in the comments, and by the time I get around to reading the comments, they're gone. Millie said, Tom Holman worked for Obama. Did he? I know he's been around for a long time. Christopher said, there hasn't been a recount in any state since Bush was elected. What's the significance of that? Christopher said, Robin Williams movie Man of the Year, Glitch Software. Black Tie Society says, still has his MAGA tie on. You talking about me? This is a MAGA tie? What's MAGA about this tie? I know MAGA made ties. Irma V, good morning. Echo said, you all have a fabulous day. Thank you. Karina, good morning. It's me, Rosie. Thanks for the follow. Annie F said, well, put the phone down. I like that one too. It's funny. Christopher Nelson, what are you talking about? You spamming my comments, talking about nothingness. Don't spam my comments. We're going to have to kick you out. Styled by Terry said, I need those sounds when I talk to people in person. Yeah, you probably do. Let's see. Gerard Jr., thanks for the follow. L. Elon Mech said, deport now. Well, they're trying to. They are deporting people now. Elon said, go ICE doing good job. Well, they're trying to do a good job. Carl said, people have been trained to say and think undocumented when it's actually illegal immigration. Well, I just say without proper documentation, because there's a lot of different ways people can be doing it. But yes, it is illegal. It's illegal because it goes against the law. Christopher said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Moderator, somebody get rid of Christopher Nelson Rathbone. He's spamming the comments talking about a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Leilani said, how can you tell which terms will get bananaed? What does that mean? I don't know what you're referring to. Alvin said, I'm paying $5,000 to the first 5 people who inbox me. I don't think people believe that, Alvin. Send me the $5,000 first, and then I'll tell everybody that you're actually doing it. So let's see. Abby said, how about look it up at least? Look what up? What are you referring to? Carla said, Melania and her parents went through the proper procedures. Is that what you're asking about, Melania? Abby said, you think she went through them? Melania's citizenship status is not the subject here today. So if you actually want to know, Abby, how about you look it up? I mean, you're the one who asked the question. You must have me confused for a school teacher. You think I'll just answer any question you ask, no matter what it is? Rosa Nicosia, thanks for the heart. D. Johnson said, I completely agree. Thank you. K. Norris, sorry, I repeated my question. Fair enough. Marky Man said, Tourism Birth is a company that brings mothers in their last trimester to give birth in the USA. Oh, there's a whole business for it? That makes sense now that you say it. That's a smart business to have, as long as they can get away with it. Abe said, Ilhan Omar came to the U.S. at 12 or 13 years of age per Wikipedia. She arrived in New York in 1995. Okay. Well, I think she's a citizen. I think she's pretty clear. I think she's cleared for citizenship. Murphy said, Trump won't win this one. As it stands, I don't think he will. But there were other times I didn't think Trump was going to win. He won. So we'll see. Edith said, you don't become a citizen because you marry someone. You get a Social Security that allows you to work. If you marry someone who's a citizen, you get citizenship. I'm not saying that's how she got it. I'm saying because she's married to Trump, on that alone, she would be a citizen. But she might have been a citizen before that. I don't know. But Melania Trump's citizenship status is not the subject here today. So I generally don't even care. Balu said, nothing can stop what is coming. Well, what's coming? Gerald Miller, thanks for the share. My LSNS said, a mule will definitely, Supreme Court is compromised and supporting Trump, what a mule has done. What does that mean? Carrie said, California has houses that allow women to check in and have their babies to get citizenship. Yeah, so a few of you have said that, so I believe you. They're from other countries. Yeah, I understand. HJY said, if he does win the case, how far back do we go on rejecting citizenship granted by birthright? Well, that'd be the next thing for them to figure out. And you got to win the case first, but I'm sure they're already planning on that, figuring that out. K. Norris said, what do you think the odds were when the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade? I wasn't paying that much attention when it happened, so I didn't have an opinion at that time. Jay said, I took my first law class and loved it. All right, well, I've heard a lot of people say they took a law class and hated it, and they dropped out of being a law student. But then there's a bunch of people I know who are actually lawyers, so maybe they loved it too. Kerry said, Democrats flooded our country to steal the vote. He is disgraceful. Who? You talking about Biden? Well, they flooded our country they allowed illegal immigrants to flood the country. And I think their goal it wasn't necessarily getting that vote in 2024. The goal was votes later on down the line. Because, again, that's the reason why Trump is talking about birthright citizenship. Just think about it. All these immigrants who came into the country, they go have a bunch of kids. Those kids are 18 years away from being able to vote. So it's not for 2024. We're talking about the 2050 election. That there's going to be, they want to have an overwhelming Democrat voter base. So it's a long-term play by the Joe Biden administration, what they did during his time. It wasn't for the next election or even the one after that. This is a long-term game that they were playing. And it was actually, if I'm just thinking about winning votes in the long term, it was a smart move by the Biden administration or by the Democrats, period. They told him to do it. It wasn't Joe Biden's idea by himself. Rosie said, how is that an illegitimate argument by Trump? Which one? John Rennell says, about the globalist agenda and pushing them out, United Nations 2030 agenda is all about it. I've heard some people say it. Toker said, are Trump's kids considered anchor babies? Trump is an American citizen. He's born in America. So, no, they're not anchor babies. Michelle, good morning. Cringy Liberal, thanks for the follow. It's me, Rosie said. What are you referring to, Rosie? Leilani said, what is he reading from? I don't see these comments he's missing. I'm reading from the oldest to the newest. I don't always say that. I'm reading from the oldest comments to the newest comments. Someone said, I got a new dog. I do not have a dog. I got my window open, so maybe you hear a dog that's outside somewhere. I don't have a dog. Wendy said, have you looked at the special weather map that no one is talking about? No, what's a special weather map? Carla said, I was singing during the restroom break. Fair enough. Rosie said, yeah, what are you referring to? Rosie, you're asking, how is that? You're referring to something. I don't know what you're talking about. Sportster Kid, thank you for the fest pop. And congrats on the gift badge. Thanks for the rose. Let's see, where was I? Okay, I'm almost caught up to the comments. John said, why hasn't the Border Patrol been arrested? Democrats told us to disobey orders. Well, arrested means somebody got to give a damn about a crime being broken. It's not just breaking it. Urban Geek said, when people say have a good day, what does that consist of, as in what? I think some people say Urban Greek because they have to log off of the live and they're just leaving, so they just are signing off because they can't stick around for the rest of the comments. I usually go from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, so some people can't stay the whole time. So I think they're just saying bye because they're leaving. Skittles say 14th was not written so the planet could jump the border and have automatic citizen babies. Well, you should be a lawyer on Trump's side because that's exactly what they're going to argue. Carlos said banana equal canceled. Oh, is that what that means? I never heard of that. I didn't know that's what a banana means, getting canceled. I don't know about this new slang. Happy Day said, why you don't here answering questions if you don't want to answer the important ones? All right, give me an important question, Happy Day, and I'll answer it. Let's see if your questions are important. XTR, thanks for the share. Leah said, banana means shut you down. Like when you said TikTok flags you over certain words. Where did this come from, that a banana equals shutting somebody down? How do y'all notice? And how did I not notice? Rick Thomas said, Trump has lost large amounts of his base. I currently would not vote for him again. Fair enough, but who are you going to vote for? Well, actually, he's not running. But who would you vote for? Because usually you have two options. So it depends on who the options are that you got to consider as well. What if Trump ran against Kamala again? You saying you would vote for Kamala? Raylani said, what's your take on the incoming digital ID agenda? I don't know that much about it, so I can't give you a take on it. Madam said, just want to say thank you for putting the expiration you deliver out there. God bless. I think you mean explanation, but thank you. I appreciate it. Karina said, when I read the executive order, it was for recent births only. How recent, though? How recent we talking? Madam, thanks for the follow. Noel, good morning. Bagani said, Canada, they're working to pass Bill C9, making free speech illegal and moving goalposts to censor. Well, they're already doing that in what happened? So TikTok said that I shared misinformation that may cause moderate harm. What the hell does that even mean? What did I say? What misinformation? What moderate harm did I possibly cause? What did I say? All I've really been doing here for the last 45 minutes is reading the comments. I don't know what they're referring to. And they say, TikTok said that I have shared misinformation that may cause moderate harm. I don't know what they're referring to. And the problem with this is they don't tell you what you said. If they would just quote me and say, "Are you said this particular thing," I don't know what they're talking about. It's TikTok, what the hell are you talking about? Rosie said, you mentioned Biden's open rules to let others in was an illegitimate reason for the case. No, I did not say that. I said Biden signed an executive order when he came into office that relaxed the enforcement of the rules. So he didn't just say no rules. He just relaxed the enforcement. That's all you can do with an executive order. And then a bunch of people came in. That's a legitimate reason, a legitimate argument, evidence that Trump can use when they argue in front of the Supreme Court. So I think you're interpreting what I said the exact opposite. Sold by Misty, good morning. Barbara Courts said, where was I? Lost my spot again. Barbara Court said, Obama made the same investment in 08-012. That's why his current generation of young voters is heavily Democrat. Well, Obama was actually deporting people too, though. And Obama was very compelling as a candidate. I can't put Obama in the same box as Joe Biden. Obama was actually a very compelling candidate, no matter what side you're on, he was compelling as a person, as is Trump. Joe Biden is not in that group. Mineral says, should we be looking at voter fraud considering the massive fraud in Minnesota? Or looking at it how and where and on what grounds? Tara said, I'm done with voting. LOL. Okay. Mark Gonzalez said, people say banana is used instead of the word ban. Ban gets TikTok shut. Right. Okay, then I shouldn't be reading that then, huh? Oh, so maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe because I kept saying that word. Okay, so you all got the TikTok slang I don't know about. Marky Man said, I only knew about the eggplant. Pause. Millie said, Trump is doing everything that he campaigned on, so why are people complaining now? That's a good point. No, some people complaining because they didn't want what he campaigned on, and other people are complaining because he's not doing it all the way. Rick said, that's a good question. I'm not sure who I'd vote for. Yeah, see, that's the issue with a binary option, is that you only got two choices. So, Madam said, thank you for sending the information out there. God bless. I appreciate it. Thank you. Carlos said, phrases had to be TT friendly or you get blocked or banned. Okay, now I understand. We said TikTok slang. You say you don't scroll TikTok when you aren't live. I've seen it others live. Okay, yeah, that's why I don't know about it. I don't know about the TikTok slang. It's been around. Somebody might have reported me. All right. K Norris said, I love your insights. I lost my spot again. Thank you for answering questions. You're welcome. I like answering questions. This is the funnest part. After I give the context, I like to answer the questions. Abe said the digital thing gets flagged. TikTok doesn't like truth, Rosie said. Maybe. I haven't got suspended since like May, so I've got a nice little 6-7 month streak going here. Tara said you were reported by someone? Yeah, I don't know. Moderate harm? What the hell does that even mean? Sunshine said people are reporting you. Maybe they are. Carly said we love the TikTok shop. Yes, we love the TikTok shop. Thank you, TikTok, for the shop. Mineral, they don't tell you exactly what was flagged. They never tell you exactly what. Because if they tell you exactly what, now you get to hold them accountable to what they're holding you to. And then if you see somebody else doing it, then you can say, hey, them too, or me, or what. You can argue with them if they get specific. If they get too specific, now you can argue with them. If they keep it vague, then you can't argue back because you don't even know why you got suspended. And Lonnie said, respect what you're doing. It is for the BAN species getting more precarious by the day. Okay, I need to stop saying that word because that might have been what I got flagged for in the first place. Abe said the digital thing. What digital thing? What are you referring to? What does that mean? Nana said these sensitive people in the comments are reporting. But I haven't gotten, I don't know, maybe it's today's topic. I don't know. Heck says, I think a lot of people could have lived with DACA till Biden threw the doors open. Yeah, Biden throwing the doors open was a problem, and now Donald Trump's trying to undo it. Mineral said, do you think youngsters will vote in radicals if did and shelter costs don't come down soon? Well, we don't have to ask that question, Mineral, because we just saw what happened in New York City, didn't we? So yes, they will. Carlos said, let's get 200K. I don't know if we'll get there. We got about 14 minutes max. Modern Day Hippie, thanks for the follow. Barban Court Poppy said, Obama gave Biden his entire political playbook. Joe's tenure was essentially as Barack's mouthpiece. I can't argue against that. Sunshine Bling said, I do enjoy listening to you in the mornings. Thank you. Christy, member level 15. Congratulations. Thanks for the lightning bolt. Moses P, thank you for the follow. Barb, thank you for the like. So I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, ladies and gentlemen. And over there on YouTube, Black Man Advocate said bad interpretation of the law will be corrected. Well, we'll see. Girls Morris-esque said tapping in as a lawyer. Adversarial proceedings means I don't think facts prove the conclusion you are seeking. I'm also a military vet. I have my son in France. He is not a French citizen. Yeah, exactly. So most other countries don't even do that. So this is the argument that Trump's making, but the argument against him is, well, we do it. That's the whole point. So we'll see. We'll see. Abe said, the initials get you banned. What does that even mean? I still don't know what that means. Some of y'all are speaking in code and I don't understand what you're talking about. So anyway, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. If you want to get one of my books, I'll just tell you the book specifically. I'll give you this book for free. TikTok, I'm offering this book for free. I'll give you all this book for free. It's called The Third Day. The Decision Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. This book is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. Everybody has those days. If you're a professional, you will have days you don't feel like working, but you're supposed to be working. How do you show up and give your best effort on that day? This book covers it. Go to thirddaybook.com. Thirddaybook.com. The book is free. I'm giving it away for free, TikTok. I'm not selling the book. It's free. You get the book for free. Just cover the shipping. Go to thirddaybook.com. And in this book is 185 pages. I will give you the full game on how you do this strategically and systematically. This is not a motivational book, though you may be motivated by the process. This is what helps you follow this process even when you're not motivated. That is what it's all about. You're going to be a professional because a professional has to show up and do your job regardless of how you feel. ThirdDayBook.com, or just text the number 3 to my number, which is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Send a text with the number 3 to my number. I will send you a link to get this book. Again, just tell us where to ship it, cover the shipping. We will ship you the book. The book's free. ThirdDayBook.com. So I will see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic is always to be determined. I usually pick the topic like right before we go live. So I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll see when the time comes. There's always something going on. Maybe we'll come back to Candace Owens at some point. We'll come back to Donald Trump at some point. Those are the 2 topics to keep on giving. So if something else happens, we'll talk about that too. We'll see. So I appreciate all the moderators here. Appreciate the regulars. People appreciate everybody with the comments, the dissenters, those who helped me use some of the soundboard. One of my favorites now. Let's see, Michael Jordan.
Stop it. Get some help.
And this one.
Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down. This is for my safety. Put the phone down.
So I will see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Tuesday. Work on your game. We are out of here.